Well, thank you guys for responding and let us know that you can see both of us. Listen, this is about the fabulous Tawanda Rush Williams. So if you can see her, you can hear her, and you can hear my voice, then we're going to go ahead and move forward. So I am not sure when it replays if it's going to repopulate, but for whatever reason, I am not able to see your face. But long as you can hear me, we're going to rock and roll. So for those of you who are joining us tonight for the first time, this is Politics Personified, and I'm your host, Lolita Hampton. And let me just give you a little background before we get started. So Politics Personified was birthed and founded for the purpose of allowing elected officials, former elected officials, and promising candidates such as Tawanda to be able to tell their story. So I wanted to create a platform where we can humanize the political world, and that's why it's Politics Personified, right? Because it's important to personify who the person is at their core and kind of get to know them a little bit, learn more about their story and not just their political platform and campaign, right? So this is why Politics Personified is so important. And I'm so thankful for those of you who are joining us, who are repeat viewers, and those of you who are joining us for the first time. So make sure to stay connected. Again, tell your friends to join us as well. And we're going to go ahead and jump in. So as long as you can hear me, Tawanda, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Are you cool with that?
Yes, absolutely. And I can hear you just fine. And I'm sorry you cannot see me. I can see you clearly.
Wow. You know what? I'm telling you, Instagram never ceases to amaze me. So, but we are go ahead and rock and roll for the sake of time. All right, guys. So again, Politics Personified. Our special guest is attorney Tawanda Rush Williams, and she is running for, Superior Court Judge in Gwinnett County, which is a suburb in Atlanta, Georgia. So I like to get started with just some background. A few weeks ago, I had another guest on who's running for judgeship with state judge. And so there's a difference between state judge and superior court judge. So I'm just going to give you just a Google definition. This is not Lolita's definition, but something I found on Google. And I'll have Tawanda just kind of chime in if I'm flowing in the right direction and just kind of give our viewers the layman's term for the role that you are running for Superior Court Judge. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the difference between state court and Superior Court in Georgia is Superior Court is responsible for handling cases involving serious crimes such as felonies, civil disputes, real estate matters, and family and domestic relation issues. Now that's, again, Superior Court. That's what Tawanda is running for. And then state court handles civil law actions not otherwise within the jurisdiction of Superior Court, dispossessions, misdemeanors, and certain traffic offenses. So again, Tawanda is running for Superior Court Judge. So Tawanda, kind of give me some feedback. Did we nail that definition?
No, not exactly. You got part of it. So yes, Superior Court does handle serious felonies as well as family law matters, but Superior Court handles a number of other types of lawsuits that people don't think about, such as your property tax appeals, as well as condemnation cases. So when the county takes private property for a public purpose, such as to build a school or a fire station or a police station, those are considered condemnation cases, and all of those cases also go to Superior Court. Disputes over land go to Superior Court, as well as your Section 1983 civil rights litigation cases that are often filed against police officers also go to Superior Court. So it is not exactly a court that only hears family law matters and felonies. It also hears a number of other matters and also appeals from lower courts, which would be your recorder's court, as well as your magistrate court, and sometimes even juvenile court would be heard in Superior Court as well. So there are a number of civil matters that are heard in Superior Court. And I think you nailed the state court jurisdiction.
Okay. So Google may be a little biased, maybe a little biased on the other state court, but that's okay. That's why, definitely want to hear your perspective. And again, this is again part of that humanizing what those roles are, right? And in our platform. So it's important because believe it or not, so many people don't know the difference between state and superior, and it's important to be knowledgeable. So this is why we created this platform so that viewers such as those who are following us tonight can learn more about local elections, about the court system, about, county commissioners and so forth. So thank you so much for clearing that up for us, Tawanda. So again, Tawanda is running for Superior Court Judge in Gwinnett County, which is separate and different from State Court Judge. So definitely make a note of that.
Yeah.
Again, for those of you who are joining us just now, this is Politics Personified, and our special guest tonight is Tawanda Rush Williams. So Tawanda, I'm going to jump right in. I mentioned to you, a few days ago that, hey, I like to get to the root of who you are and learn more about Tawanda,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
So, yes. So Tawanda, you are a native of Rochester, New York. Talk to us a little bit about your upbringing.
Absolutely. So yes, I was born and raised in Rochester, New York, to working class parents. And I like to emphasize that because my father only had a fifth grade education, and he actually went to technical school to become a diesel mechanic. My mother only had an 11th grade education, and she was a domestic her entire life until she retired. And of course, that means literally taking care of other folks' children and cleaning other folks' homes. That's what she did. And I like to talk about that because sometimes when I hear from young people who say, well, this is my circumstance, and so, I can't achieve, the same level of education or success as you, I want them to know that's not true because of my humble beginnings. Just knowing that you can achieve whatever you set your mind to, regardless of your family background and your social economic status. My father died when I was 13 years old. He had a massive heart attack. And so from age 13 on, my sister and I were raised by my mom, who of course was of very limited means. So that was my background. And I went to college at Syracuse University. I received a number of scholarships to go there, but there was still a gap between financial aid and academic scholarships. And that was a challenge because oftentimes I was late in paying my deposits. And so I was late registering for classes, but we made it through. I had a job all through college. And I even pledged a sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. But I did attend Syracuse University, and then I decided that I was going to apply to the cheapest law school I could get into to minimize loan debt. So I went to the State University of New York at Buffalo School of Law. So that's my background.
That's your background. Okay, so you say you have one sibling, a sister?
I have one sibling of both parents. I have a sister who's 15 months older than I am, and she is a physician assistant. Her name is Dr. Roxanne Rush Bryant, and she lives in Cary, North Carolina with her husband and 2 kids. And I also have 4 half brothers because my father married before he married my mom, and he got divorced and had 4 sons. So imagine his excitement when he remarried and had 2 girls.
Right. Okay, you have 4 big brothers. That reminds me of my niece. She has 4 big brothers. And so that's always special for a young lady to have those big brothers, those protectors, in their lives. So very cool story. Thank you for sharing that. So Tawanda, you have been in the Atlanta area since 2000. So you're going on almost 25 years. So I asked all of my female guests this question. I have to ask you the same. Are you a Georgia Pete?
Well, I am now, and I've actually been in the Atlanta area since 1992. So I do
Oh,
want to clarify, yes, I actually discovered Atlanta in my last year of law school, visiting my sister who married a gentleman who was stationed at Fort Gordon in the Army, and he was hired by Kimberly Clark Corporation in Roswell, Georgia. And I came to
okay.
visit them in my last year of law school and decided that's where I want to be because there's no snow and
I know, I get it.
mild winters. And when you grow up in Rochester, New York, and then you go to college at Syracuse and law school in Buffalo, you look forward to no snow, or at least I did.
Yeah.
So I've actually been here since 1992.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Very long time. That's interesting. That was the first year I visited Atlanta,
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So I understand about the snow. I can appreciate the mild winter. So yes, we came down in '92 for spring break, and it was like, oh my gosh, there's no snow. Oh my gosh, So I never even thought that I would move to Atlanta. Many years later, I came down in the early 2000s, but I did go to college in Virginia, which is still more mild than Cleveland.
Yes.
And I remember when I would come back after Christmas break and I would have on what we call the triple fat boots. I don't even know if they still make them anymore. Triple fat boots, yes, I'm aging myself. And I would come back and this dried up snow would be on my coat and people would say, where'd you come
Yeah.
from?
Yes.
So I absolutely can empathize with that shock, especially when you grow up in the snow belt like that and just all the snow trauma. That's what I call it now. It's snow
Oh,
trauma.
yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. Your car is rusted out under your,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yeah. And I had to walk to school in the snow. So I completely empathize with you. And ironically, like I said, 1992 was my first year that I visited Atlanta as a child, as a youth. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I think I ended up coming back almost every year. I remember in '95, I stayed here for the summer. That's when I learned how to drive because, it wasn't as cityfied as it is
Yes.
now. So
Yeah.
where my uncle was living, it was more rules. So he taught me how to drive that summer. So yeah, Atlanta has been in my forethought long before I moved down here. So I completely empathize with that.
That's awesome.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us. So you said you are a Georgia Peach,
I
right?
am now. I've lived in
Okay.
Georgia longer than I lived in New York State, so I'm
Yeah.
claiming that I am a Georgia peach.
Okay. You know what? You are the first. You are the first to say that this year. So, um, I still root for the home team of Cleveland, Ohio, all the sports teams and so forth. So I have not laid claim yet to being a peach, although people say, Lolita, you are a peach. You've been here long enough. So I will support, if my team isn't playing, I will support. My children were born here. So sometimes, I got to kind of root for I call this my southern city. So sometimes I do root for my southern
Oh, good.
city out of respect for my kids. Yeah, yeah.
That's
I respect for my kids. All right, good stuff. Okay, so I know previously you were deputy county attorney in Gwinnett County, but specifically, I read an article where you were listed as number two person in Gwinnett County Law Department. Can you explain to the viewers what does that mean to be number two?
Yes. So Gwinnett County has a law department that is responsible for all of the legal matters of all 14 county departments, as well as the district attorney, the clerk of court, the solicitor general, and the judges on all 6 courts, as well as your elected officials such as the sheriff and the tax commissioner were all my clients. So Gwinnett County has a structure where they have a county attorney, and then they have deputy county attorneys, and then they have senior assistant county attorneys, and then down to assistant county attorneys, and then associates. So because I was deputy county attorney, I had been promoted to that position several years ago, and that meant that I was second in command, along with 2 others who were on the same level The only difference is that I was over litigation and they were over transactional matters. So every lawsuit that came into the county or that went out to the county, I was responsible for managing that lawsuit. And I had a team of lawyers that worked under me that also handled those lawsuits, as well as transactional matters for their departments that they were assigned. So that's what it means, which means that I had a lot of responsibility because I had to supervise and manage other lawyers, their work. I handled all of their performance evaluations. I trained them and I went to court with them when they had trials.
Okay. All right, good stuff. Well, we're going to just transition right to your additional experience. So you have over 31 years of legal experience. Can you kind of summarize that for us? 31 years, that's a phenomenal amount of legal experience. So talk to us about your journey, a quick overview about your journey over these past 30 years.
Absolutely. So I started out in 1992 in private practice, working for a solo practitioner. That was interesting because there was little training. It was literally just jump in and learn what you can and shoot from the hip, which was pretty exciting. And in that capacity, I did family law, personal injury cases, property damage cases, as well as workers' compensation defense on behalf of insurance companies and employers. I also did some criminal misdemeanor work in Fulton County State Court. So I did that, and I stayed in private practice for 4 years. I didn't stay with the solo practitioner. I ended up going to a larger firm, and I continued to do workers' compensation cases. At one point, I was a solo practitioner where I handled a lot of criminal misdemeanor work on behalf of Fulton County State Court. So my 4 years in private practice were pretty broad. I did personal injury cases, property damage cases, criminal misdemeanor defense cases, family law cases, including full trials, workers' compensation defense, and even some landlord tenant work and drafting wills. So pretty broad practice. And then I went to work for the City of Atlanta Law Department. And I will tell you that decision was based on the fact that my husband and I had a baby. And my husband felt like a single parent because when I worked in the law firm, I worked 6 days a week. I worked 12 to 14-hour days. And so my husband was taking our baby to daycare, picking him up, giving him his bath, feeding him his dinner. And honestly, I think I would have been divorced if I had not made the decision to transition to local government. So I took a $50,000 pay cut from the law firm and went to work for the City of Atlanta Law Department. Don't regret it. I did that for 9 years. I worked for the City of Atlanta, which was quite exciting working there. It's very different from working in Gwinnett County. A lot of activity, a lot of meetings, and I was promoted twice there, from associate city attorney to assistant city attorney, and then to senior assistant city attorney within those 9 years. And I supervised lawyers when I became a senior, and I did everything from civil rights cases to employment cases, Title VII, race, age, gender discrimination cases, disability cases, all kinds of employment-related cases. I tried a lot of cases in federal court, which is downtown, and it was a very broad litigation practice there as well, representing the police department, fire department, corrections, and the sheriff's department, as well as their department of procurement. So pretty broad practice. I did that for 9 years. And then I decided that I could no longer take the commute because I was literally driving from Lawrenceville to Atlanta. And I remember distinctly coming home one evening and 85 North was shut down. And so everybody traveling on the expressway had turned off their engines and they were standing outside their vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
They would not let anybody exit. We were at the intersection of Jimmy Carter Boulevard and I-85 northbound.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a gentleman up on the bridge who was threatening to jump. And so there were crisis negotiators up there from the Gwinnett County Police Department. And when I tell you, Lolita, we were out there for 4 hours. So imagine working all day long, and then you get to this point where the traffic is just stopped and folks are out of their vehicles having conversations. And I remember people were so frustrated, they started screaming, just jump already, jump so we can go home. So it was at that point that I decided, I think I need a job in Gwinnett County because this is just not going to work for me long term. So that's how I applied for the position here in Gwinnett County. And actually, I applied for a judicial position on magistrate court. And the chief magistrate told me there was no way he was going to put me on the bench because I didn't know the players in the legal arena in Gwinnett, and that I needed to just get a job in Gwinnett. So that's why I ended up getting a job in the Gwinnett County Law Department.
Okay. All right, definitely fascinating story. It's interesting because my next question was why law and specifically attorney for local government? You answered that. It honestly started with your family, the need to shift and to change and to be transparent and adjust for your family. So, now, and so that's very interesting because there are so many aspects to law, right? It's very broad.
Yes.
And so, I was curious, like, why local government? There's so many areas that you can focus on. So very interesting insight with that. Now, I do have to ask you, did you decide that you wanted to be an attorney like at a young age, maybe a middle school girl somewhere in elementary, or is this something that came about just later on in life? When did you decide that law was for you?
That is a great question. So I decided that I wanted to pursue law when I was in the 11th grade in high school. Before that time, I decided that I was going to become an American literature professor at a college because I love all things literature. I'm an avid reader. I've been in a book club for I don't know how long, 12 years or so. And so I wanted to literally teach American classics at a collegiate level. But when I was in the 11th grade, my high school had a mock trial competition opportunity. And so I decided I was going to participate, and I was able to play the role of a judge. And I loved being able to study a case and being able to apply the law, being able to learn how to make objections. And I thought, okay, maybe I'll go to law school instead. And so that was what really birthed my desire to become a lawyer. I cannot say it was early like some folks. I was in the 11th grade when I decided that that's what I'd like to do.
Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Yes, I participated in something similar to that, and my goals and aspiration were to become an attorney. And, full transparency, went to undergrad, major in journalism. I kind of told you a little bit about my background. And I remember just like, I just need to get through these 4 years because I am going to be an attorney. I am not even going to focus on this because this is what I'm going to do. And again, full transparency, got to the end and it was time to take that LSAT. And I was not very well versed in standardized testing, let's say that. So I had really good grades, but the standardized testing was just a challenge for me.
Yeah.
And so that is what deterred me from moving forward. And I remember even going on to grad school, I said, okay, well, look, I know I want to affect change, right, in society, so I will study policy. And so even in grad school, I said, all right, I am going to still give this LSAT another chance. And I even, invested in the LSAT, like preparation courses and all of that.
Yes.
And it still was just wasn't, I mean, I could go somewhere, but I just felt like, you know what, I am not prepared.
Yeah.
And now, many moves later, I say, I wonder how I would do now on this, standardized test now that life has happened and I've become more well versed and understanding even of just the analytical thinking and reading comprehension and so forth. So it was interesting to hear you say, you know what, I was in 11th grade. And I was one of those children that at an early age said, I want to be an attorney. But what deterred me was specifically that LSAT. And I was like, you know what? I am gifted in so many other areas. So I'm just going to have to put this aside, and it's interesting people sometimes say, you would have made a great attorney. I'm like, that LSAT.
You know what? I agree with that person. I think you would have made a great attorney, and it's never too late. And the good thing
Yeah.
about the LSAT is you cannot fail it.
Yeah.
You cannot fail it.
You can.
The goal is to get as high a score as you can so that when you apply to law school, they'll look at your LSAT score and your GPA, your grade point average.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I suspect that you would do a lot better than you thought you would or that you think you would.
I know. I appreciate that support. And like I said, just life and even with my children, helping them with different standardized tests. Like my son he's scholastic with standardized tests. Like he does well. That is his juice. That's his jam. He does very well. And I just think some people are just created,
Yeah.
to do well on those type of tests. And he does well too with, just his courses. But since he was like kindergarten, first grade, I mean, high scores, very, very, high 90 percentile.
Wow.
With the test was the highest in the first grade and the second grade. We're like,
Wow.
okay, like he's gonna make it, right? So, I'm like, ooh, I'm so glad that, one of my children, can do well on this. And because it was very intimidating. So it's just interesting to hear your perspective. And I appreciate your transparency with, hey, you know what? I wasn't, a little girl, 8 years old, like, I'm going to be an attorney. I saw a judge show. It wasn't that story at all. So I completely, appreciate that transparency. So, and your support of, hey, it's never too late. And so for those of you who are joining us tonight, it's never too late. I don't know what it's like to go to law school.
Never too late. I had classmates in their 60s when I was in law school. So,
wow. Yeah. I told you I have school-age children, so I don't think I would even consider it right now.
Yeah.
I still got a few more years under my belt. But I'm going to keep that in mind, Tawanda. And if I decide to move forward, I will absolutely let you know. Someone made a comment. They said standardized tests should be supplemental to the overall determination of student learning and growth. And I do agree with that. Again, some students do very well, but it should be a supplemental determination instead of just the standard.
I totally agree. And I know at one point there was a plan for certain law schools to do away with the LSAT completely. I don't know if that actually materialized, but I do know that was on the table. So,
listen, I will find that out if I decide to take that journey, in 10 years. But I definitely appreciate that. All right. So your platform, you talk about temperance and transparency and trust. Talk to us about why you chose to focus on temperance, transparency, and trust regarding your platform for Superior Court Judge.
Absolutely. So temperance means that I am even-tempered and I'm patient and I'm courteous. That is important because unfortunately there are some judges who do not exemplify temperance. There are some judges who do not appear to be interested in hearing the person's side of the story, and it is a factor that has to be considered by any judge, right? The whole point of a hearing is to be able to share your side of the story, which means that you need to have a judge who is not easily angered or upset and who is even-tempered and who is courteous at all times. And so I have always tried to speak with my clients with an even tone and having an even keeled attitude with regard to whatever their needs were. And so I decided that temperance needed to be one of the characteristics that I would bring to the table for that reason.
Okay.
And because my name is Tawanda, I really wanted
Mhm.
to identify characteristics that started with the letter T, because it's just
That's
easier.
nice. I
So
like
I
that.
call my team the 3T team, because
Yes.
temperance, transparency, and trust are my 3Ts. And I can tell you about transparency. It is
Yes.
important to me that judges are open and honest. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is, if you've ever served on a jury,
Mhm.
sometimes the judge will send the jury out. There may be
Okay.
a question that's raised by an attorney to a witness who's on the witness,
Okay.
and the judge will announce, we need to send the jury out. The jury gets taken out by the bailiff, and then the judge
Mhm.
takes up the issue, and then the jury is brought back, and the jury doesn't know why they were sent out. I think it's important for the judge to communicate to the jury what happened. You know, was there a question raised that shouldn't have been raised? Was there an evidentiary issue that the jury couldn't hear because it would influence their decision? And I think it's important for a judge to just be open and honest at all times with everyone who is in the courtroom,
Okay.
lawyers, litigants, and the jury as well. So that's why. And I'll tell you, as a supervisor of other lawyers, they would, my team would always say, we love you because you're so transparent.
Yeah.
We never
Love
forget
that.
what you're thinking because you tell us. And
Mhm.
we feel blessed to have a supervisor who shares
Mhm.
all of the information as opposed to giving us pieces of information. And so they used to
Right.
call me my transparent supervisor. So I thought transparency needed to be one of my T's.
Yeah, that's very critical, very important as you and I are talking this evening and sharing stories. It's so important to be able to connect,
Yeah.
connect with your audience, connect with your clients, connect with the community. So very good stuff. And then talk to us about trust. Why trust, Tawanda?
So trust is simply because you can trust, as a resident of this county and as a voter and as a citizen, that I'm going to follow the law, but I'm going to do it with compassion, and I'm going to do
Mhm.
it with empathy. There's one thing to just look at the law as black and white and say, this is how I need to rule, this is how I need to make my decision. But we need to look at
Mhm.
individuals on a case by case basis, because your
Mhm.
story is different from my story, which is different from the next person's story. And I believe that judges need to take into consideration an individual's background, an individual's road, an
Mhm.
individual's story. And
Mhm.
so I want the voters to trust that I'm going to
Mhm.
follow the law, but I'm also going to take into consideration that person's story. I'm going to be
Yeah.
empathetic. So that's how I decided that trust would be my third factor. So so those are the
Okay.
characteristics that I provide, but those
Right.
are not the reasons why I'm running. And I can share
Okay.
those if you like.
Yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and hear your why. That's very important. Why, Tawanda? What propelled you to run for Superior Court Judge in Gwinnett County?
So the main reason why I'm running is because what I saw up close and personal. Because I was an attorney in the Gwinnett County Attorney's Office for 18 years, I
Mhm.
had an opportunity to represent the Board of Commissioners, the
Mhm.
District Attorney, the Solicitor General, all the judges, as well as the Sheriff and the Tax Commissioner. One of the things that bothered me most is what I saw in our Gwinnett County Jail. When
Oh,
I visited, we had huge numbers of inmates, pretrial
mhm.
detainees with mental illness. When I
Oh,
left Gwinnett Gwinnett County in May of last year, and I had to leave because I had to resign because it was a conflict of interest for me to stay and run for judge when I defended the judges when they were sued. But when I left in May, there were over 500 people sitting in the Gwinnett County Jail with some form of mental illness. 500. And because of that, the other 2,200 inmates in the regular population really did not get the full attention that they needed. They were getting showers like one day a week. They had difficulty meeting with their lawyers to prepare for trial in their cases because, unfortunately, the sheriff's office, and this is not the fault of the sheriff, but there's limited manpower available to manage the inmates. And so the focus and the attention had to be primarily those with mental illness because they require medication stabilization, they require round-the-clock observation, they tend to be a higher suicide risk, they tend to be socially isolated, and honestly, I don't believe that judges should send people to jail who have mental illness. I believe that they should be put in probation status, sentenced to home confinement with required counseling and a case manager. And that is generally what's happening in our courts, but not enough. I would like to see Gwinnett County's courts expand their mental health court, their accountability court, because quite frankly, the jail is not the place for someone with mental illness. It just isn't. Yeah. So that's the main reason. And then there are other reasons why I'm running. I would like to facilitate greater access to justice by those in marginalized communities. So when I visit the Korean community, when I visit the Chinese community, when I visit the Latino community, what they tell me is that they don't trust our court system. They don't feel like it is available to them. And in some cases, when you are members of the Latino community, they fear deportation, even though in Gwinnett County, our current sheriff, the one thing he did that he definitely agreed to do before he was elected was to do away with our 287G program. And he did that. But there's still this fear that if I contact the police, then my family will be deported. So I would like to see judges out in the community that they serve and approachable, and also explaining to the various communities how you go about proceeding with a criminal case, a civil case. How do you go about getting a temporary protective order or a restraining order, and basically putting a face with the name of the judge, and being able to talk one-on-one with members of the bench. So facilitating access is another important goal. And then lastly, I'd like to better support survivors of human trafficking. It's a huge problem in that county. We have the largest human trafficking problem in the state because we're on the I-85 corridor. And so I would like to see us do some things from the court side to help the survivors to gain their independence and be able to go on to lead productive lives, but also severely penalize those who commit human trafficking. So those are the main reasons, and thank you for letting me share them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we appreciate all that you shared tonight. We appreciate you sharing your story, your background. As you mentioned, Tawanda represents the 3 T's: transparency, temperance, and trust. And we appreciate you for being a guest tonight, and again, just showing up as your authentic self. This is what Politics Personified is about. So I do want to give you an opportunity just to leave a closing remark for those who are viewing, for those who will come back and view later on. We know that early voting will be starting in a few weeks here in Gwinnett County. So please just leave the viewers, your constituents, and those who may be still undecided, leave them with some information on how they can reach you, how they can support you, donate to your campaign, or just whatever last thoughts you want to share.
Thank you so much for that opportunity. So I am running for Superior Court Judge, not just because I have 31 years of experience, not just because I am knowledgeable in over 25 areas of the law, but simply because I care about the people of Gwinnett County. I'm also a lifelong public servant. I'm the only one in my race that has worked as a local government lawyer for 27 of the 31 years that I practice law, which means that I'm dedicated to our local government community and I'm very knowledgeable about our local government community. I'm also the only one in my race that has practiced law primarily in Gwinnett County and not all over the place. And I would think you want somebody who is very familiar with Gwinnett County to ascend to the bench. I also perform a lot of community service on two nonprofits, the Gwinnett Giving Girl, as well as the Hope Board, which helps single parents to obtain their college degrees. And I'm very active in my sorority. I just finished my tenure as chair of the scholarship committee, where under my leadership, we awarded $65,000 in scholarships to students attending college. And I'm also a graduate of Leadership Gwinnett and a bunch of other organizations that are too numerous to mention. But I want you to know I'm a community servant as well. And I don't just practice law, but I serve Gwinnett County. And so I'm vested in Gwinnett County and its success. I would love to have your support. My website is tawandaforjudge.com. It's spelled TUWAN as in Nancy, DA, the number 4, judge.com. TUWANDA, the number 4, judge.com. You can get involved in my campaign. I could really use your help. We have 16 cities we have to cover. And certainly, I would really love to have your donations so that I can continue to market my campaign. The advanced voting date starts April 29th and goes until May 17th. And the election is Tuesday, May 21st. And please call me anytime. My number is 404-428-8493. If you have questions or you have thoughts that you'd like to share with me, I would love to hear them. And thank you for the opportunity to speak, Lolita.
Yes, absolutely. We have enjoyed you this evening. Again, it's a plethora of information and just enjoyed learning more about your journey and how you got to this place in your life where you're ready to serve your community at a different capacity at the next level. So we wish you absolutely the best through your candidacy for Superior Court Judge here in Gwinnett County. And again, those of you who are new to new to Politics Personified and want to learn more about Politics Personified and our upcoming guests, make sure to follow the Personified group. And we are a brand communication and marketing business, and we focus on helping you to discover your personal brand and being able to tell your story, just like Tawanda did tonight, giving you strategies on how to tell your story. So whether you are a professional, a small business owner, a political candidate, or elected official, we can help you tell your story. We can help you elevate your personal brand and tell the story behind your brands. So please make sure to support Tawanda, follow the Personified group, learn more about Politics Personified, about your local, state, and federal elections by following the Personified group as well. Again, Tawanda, we appreciate you for joining us tonight. You did an excellent job, and we look forward to seeing you on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much. Enjoy.
You're welcome, everyone. Yes, thank you. Everyone have a good night. All right.
Good night.